Vice President Harris, the first Democrat in almost 40 decades, as I just mentioned, to not get the backing of the Washington Post. And you just heard Jose say, who cares, right? I mean, it's a paper endorsement, doesn't necessarily move the needle. But it is interesting that they chose this moment to stay neutral. And they say, at least at this point, that they're going to stay neutral in races in the future. A lot of questions about Jeff Bezos, the owner of the paper, why they decided to do this. The publisher and CEO William Lewis wrote this, quote, "Our job as the newspaper of the capital city of the most important country in the world is to be independent. And that is what we are going to be." Let's bring in Media Buzz host Howie Kurtz, who previously worked at the Washington Post for nearly 3 decades. Howie, great to have you back today. What do you make of this?
Look, this is a profile in non-courage. It's an absolute wimping out. Now, Jeff Bezos does have the right to do this, but at the same time, the other 364 days a year, the liberal Washington Post tells us what to think about everything, every issue under the sun. And all of a sudden comes down to the most important question. It's like, oh, we couldn't possibly give you our opinion now. And so I just think Jeff Bezos, by the way, does a lot of business with the federal government through his rocket company, through Amazon. And he may fear that Trump is going to win, and he doesn't want to exacerbate their already testy relationship.
Do you want to know why we're in the position that we're in now and people are confused about this election and who to vote for? Because of this, Jeff Bezos has forced the Washington Post, the newspaper he owns, to not endorse a presidential race for the first time in 36 years. The paper had an endorsement of Kamala Harris already ready to go until the paper's owner nixed it. That's what the staffers are. Not long after that, the Washington Post editor-at-large resigned over the paper's non-endorsement. This is one day after the same thing happened at the Los Angeles Times. Its billionaire owner as well nixed an endorsement, and then the Times editor, the Los Angeles Times editor, resigned after the owner blocked.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we talked a little bit about the Washington Post and the LA Times refusing to endorse Kamala Harris. Now, again, this is very, very, very fascinating considering the closing arguments that the Democrat Party is making and the fact that the liberal media, outlets like, again, the LA Times, which is very far left, and the Washington Post have come out and say, you know what, we're going to decline to endorse Kamala Harris, right? We're going to decline to save democracy, okay? We're going to decline to do that this time around, okay? We're just going to stay neutral, which is something they haven't done in a long, long, long time. Now, this comes as there's been a long line of endorsements that Kamala Harris has been losing. Okay, and we've talked about this before. A lot of the traditional Democrat Party endorsements that they typically get every election cycle, they're not getting them this time around because everybody can see that Kamala Harris is an idiot, right? I mean, nobody wants to get behind probably the worst presidential candidate that we've ever seen, at least in my lifetime. Okay, I've never seen anybody worse than Kamala Harris. And the fact that these newspapers aren't endorsing her, I think really drives home that point, which is that Kamala Harris is extremely unimpressive and nobody really wants to be associated with endorsing her, okay? And let's just say that the mainstream liberal media and the liberals are not having a good time when it comes to this news because apparently Jeff Bezos is the one that killed this endorsement, okay? Jeff Bezos made the call and that has resulted in editors, liberals at the Post resigning, right? So they're quitting. They're now leaving. And there are also mass subscription cancellations that are happening. There's a bunch of liberals on X talking about how they're canceling their subscriptions because of the Washington Post's decision to not endorse Kamala Harris. And again, you have the mainstream liberal media outlets like MSNBC. Let's just say they're not taking this too well. Take a look.
Democracy in darkness. That's the slogan of the newspaper, the Washington Post. It is the first thing on the top of their homepage, and if you still get a print copy, it's on their newspapers too. Their reporters embody that slogan through their relentless and crucial and fearless reporting, whether it be their extensive work uncovering the horror of the January 6th attack on the Capitol in their backyard and Donald Trump's role in it that earned the Post the Pulitzer Prize for public service, or the reporting today that we spent the better part of an hour talking about Donald Trump's former chief of staff telling the Washington Post directly about his concerns that the ex-president would use the U.S. military against American citizens on U.S. soil. The work of the Washington Post has been elevated here, not that they need it, but it's been essential, especially when it comes to highlighting the threat that Donald Trump poses to democracy and to the First Amendment. And the backdrop of all of that, the Washington Post editorial board made a stunning decision today that for the first time in 36 years, the Washington Post editorial board will not endorse a candidate for president. Washington Post CEO Will Lewis writes this about the non-endorsement today, quote, "We see it as consistent with the values the Post has always stood for and what we hope for in a leader. Character and courage in service to the American ethic, veneration for the rule of law, and respect for human freedom in all its aspects." I don't even know what that means.
What do you think of the Washington Post not endorsing? I mean, they're justifying it by saying they're going to go back to their roots that they didn't used to endorse. They've been endorsing, by the way, since the 1980s. The LA Times also not endorsing. That's causing quite a controversy inside that newsroom. Somebody quit over it. There's all these allegations out there that companies are, starting to bend to the, not the likelihood, but the possibility of another Trump presidency. Do you think this stuff matters?
It certainly doesn't matter to voters. Look, the Washington Post endorsement or the LA Times endorsement, if it affects 10 people for president, I'd be surprised. It can. Endorsements do matter for local races because people really don't know the names and the issues. But for president, this is a joke. It doesn't affect the voters. But I'll tell you what it does affect is the reputation of the institution. And the former executive editor, Marty Barron, had some very interesting comments on Twitter. Some people call it X, I call it Twitter, about Marty Barron, about the Washington Post, because he went after the Post like crazy. And remember what their slogan was, Katie? Democracy dies in darkness. Boy, that's a good one. Talk about irony. Democracy dies in darkness. And so they've decided to go dark for the rest of the campaign, at least editorially. A lot of courage out there these days, loads of courage.
Larry Sabato.
Yeah, so as I told you guys, there's a full-blown meltdown on X. These people are currently losing their minds, okay? They're trying to cancel the Washington Post, which is mainstream liberal media propaganda for a vast majority of the year, right? Every single day is nothing but lies and propaganda. And if you were going to cancel them, you should cancel them over pushing propaganda and lies. But no, they want state media. And because the Washington Post decided for one time to, hey, we're going to stay neutral. We're not going to be state media on behalf of Democrats. The liberals are upset, right? Like, for example, Keith Boykin, he says, "I have just subscribed to the Washington Post since 1993, but I just canceled my subscription today because of the paper's abdication of duty to endorse a candidate in the most consequential election of my lifetime. Good riddance." Stephen King says, "After 5 years, I have canceled my subscription to the Washington Post." Matthew Dodd says, "I just canceled my subscription to the Washington Post, a paper up until today I had tremendous respect for. This decision not to endorse is the most crucial election in modern history is deplorable." Joanne Walsh says, "I just canceled my subscription to the Washington Post. You should too." Look at all these people. Look at all George Conway, "Democracy dies in cowardice." Keith Olbermann says, "Nice try, Jeff Bezos. Trump will still deport Lauren and then put you in the camps with the rest of us." He also says, "Democracy dies in the Washington Post." Molly Jung Fast says, "Democracy dies in sunlight." I'm disappointed by the Washington Post. Ted Lieu says, "The first step towards fascism is when the free press cowers in fear." This is so ironic because apparently Democrats don't believe in the free press being free, right? Because if you believed in the free press being free, then you would respect the right of the free press to openly say, hey, we're not going to endorse anybody. Yeah. Democrats don't realize their own hypocrisy here, okay? Again, the free press, again, it's called the free press for a reason, okay? But again, Democrats don't believe in the free press, right? If the free press is actually free, then they don't like that, right? Clearly. Okay, this person says the Washington Post is just fine with fascism. Yeah, so again, we see what's going on here. All these people, they're losing their minds over this. And I don't think this is a coincidence for multiple reasons, okay? I mean, if anybody knows anything about Jeff Bezos, the guy, at the very least, he might be liberal, but he seems to have had a boost in testosterone, okay? The guy has been hitting the gym, right? He's jacked, okay, for his age. Clearly, the guy is not what he used to be, okay? Clearly, he's become a man, right? but real talk, though. Real talk, okay? Have you guys noticed the pattern here in regards to what's going on, okay? The men that are endorsing Kamala Harris, that are supporting Kamala Harris overtly, they tend to become more feminine, right? Like a Mark Cuban, for example, Dave Bautista, okay? They become more feminine. The guys that used to hate Trump, right, that was openly against Trump, or now just flat out supporting Trump, they become more masculine. Like Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg has become more masculine. Okay, he's doing MMA, he's lifting, okay, he's doing more manly things, right? He's had a testosterone boost, and now all of a sudden he's saying, well, I don't really hate Trump, right? I'm not going to help out Democrats anymore. He's not endorsing Trump, but he's just saying, well, I'm not actually going to fight against Trump, okay? Same thing with Jeff Bezos, okay? You see RFK, who clearly lifts weights. He's a man's man. He's flat out endorsing Trump, right? Again, you see the pattern here. It's not a coincidence, guys. It's not, okay? It's not. I really do believe that testosterone levels have something to do with how men are thinking about who to vote for. If you're on the lower end in regards to your testosterone levels, you're more likely to vote for Kamala Harris. If you're on the higher end, or you have normal testosterone, okay, you're voting for Trump. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. So I'm just saying, I really believe it might be worth $400 million at these swing states in ads, encouraging men to get their testosterone levels checked before they vote, and letting them know that, hey, if you're thinking about voting for Kamala Harris as a man, you probably have some issues with your testosterone level. Get it checked to make sure that you're thinking correctly. Because if you're a man and you're thinking about voting for Kamala Harris, you're probably not thinking correctly. Okay, again, that's not me trying to put down men who are voting for Kamala Harris. I'm just saying they should get checked out just to make sure that you're thinking correctly, okay? Because when your testosterone levels are lower than normal, you just quite literally are not thinking correctly as a man. Just saying, right? Just saying. Not trying to offend anybody. I'm just telling the truth. So that being said, what does this actually mean? Does it mean anything? Yes, it means something, okay? Now, does it mean anything in regards to people relying on the Washington Post in regards to who they're going to vote for? No. But the Washington Post and also the LA Times and also all these other traditionally Democrat supporting entities not coming out and endorsing Kamala Harris, it tells you everything you need to know about how the Democrats and their rhetoric about Trump being Hitler is nothing but empty rhetoric, right? I want you guys to understand. The tagline, the motto of the Washington Post is that democracy dies in the darkness. Democrats claim that Trump is a threat to democracy. He's going to overthrow democracy. And the liberal newspaper, whose tagline is democracy dies in the darkness, says, we're good, right? We're not going to endorse in this election between Kamala Harris and Hitler, right? We're going to stay out of it, okay? We're just going to stay neutral. This is what's happening, okay? It's supposed to be democracy versus fascism. The Washington Post is saying, we're good, right? We're going to stay neutral when it comes to democracy versus fascism. I think the main thing about this, right? The main thing about this lack of an endorsement here, I think it really speaks to how the Democrats and their rhetoric about Trump being so evil and so bad and such a threat, it's overly exaggerated, okay? And I think that is probably the most damning part about these lack of endorsements. And again, it's not just about the Washington Post or the LA Times, right? You're seeing this across the board. The Teamsters Union, okay? I think the Firefighters Union also came out and refused to endorse Kamala Harris after endorsing Joe Biden. Yeah, I mean, when you see this type of stuff, it really does show you that a lot of people are just not buying into the rhetoric from the Democrat Party. And also on top of that, there's an interesting argument to be made about Jeff Bezos deciding not to do this because he sees the writing on the wall, which is that Trump has a good chance of winning. Okay. And if Trump has a good chance of winning, somebody like Jeff Bezos, who relies on government contracts, right? And also in competition with Elon Musk, his company, Blue Origin, competes against SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company, when it comes to these space contracts. Yeah. He's not going to want to be on Trump's bad side if Trump is running the government and Elon Musk has come out and spent millions and millions and millions of dollars supporting Trump. Who do you think that the government is probably more likely to give more contracts to, right, if Trump is elected? Now, people can not like that, right? And I'm not necessarily a fan of how that works, but that is how it works, okay? And Jeff Bezos sees the writing on the wall. He says, well, you know what? If I want to keep getting these contracts, right, and if I want to be able to compete with SpaceX, I might want to stick this out, right? I might not want to get on the future president's bad side, right? So again, regardless of what you think about that, okay, that's another conversation for another day. But if that is part of the motivation that is behind Jeff Bezos stopping the Washington Post from endorsing Kamala Harris, then that means that Jeff Bezos, in his mind, he thinks there's a very, very, very good chance that Trump will win, right? He's more afraid of Trump winning, okay, in regards to what he thinks is the likelihood of happening. He thinks that's more likely than Kamala Harris winning. Because if he felt comfortable with Kamala Harris and her current odds at winning, then they probably would have come out and just endorsed Kamala Harris and said, you know what, we're not going to worry about a potential Trump presidency because it doesn't look like he's going to win. And we already know that if Kamala wins, Elon Musk is screwed, right? That's the other side of the coin here, right? With Elon Musk supporting Trump, if Kamala wins, then the government is going to try to punish Elon Musk. I mean, we already know that this is what's going to happen, right? Which is part of the reason why Elon Musk is supporting Trump so hard, is because he knows that the writing's on the wall, that they're going to try their best to use the government power to take down Elon Musk as much as they can in the ways that they can do so that, you know, would make sense, because they only can do so much because Elon Musk and his companies are just so amazing, and the government basically relies on Elon Musk for things like, for example, rescuing astronauts from space, okay? But if there are some projects in which the government can essentially give money to Elon Musk's competitors, even if they're not as good as Elon Musk, like, for example, Blue Origin, then they're probably going to do that, right? And this is a calculated decision from Jeff Bezos in the sense that he's just hedging. He's saying, okay, well, if I don't endorse Kamala Harris and Trump wins, then maybe it's less likely that I will be punished, right, for being on the side of Kamala Harris. However, if Kamala Harris wins and I don't endorse Kamala Harris, then it's less likely that I'll be punished, and maybe I will win because they hate Elon Musk so much, right? So they're going to try to go after Elon Musk. They're going to try to punish him, and I will be rewarded for that, regardless of whether or not I endorse Kamala Harris, because I'm not actively against the Democrats like Elon Musk, right? I think that's the calculation here from Jeff Bezos. These are smart guys, right? And when you see all these billionaires coming out here and saying, all right, we're going to chill, right, in regards to our Trump arrangement, okay, even though they put a lot of money behind Kamala Harris, when they come out here and say, hey, we're refusing to endorse, we're refusing to get involved, I think it tells you everything you need to know about the likelihood of Trump winning, right? How they see the current state of the race playing out, and this is not good for Kamala Harris. So in regards to whether or not this sways anybody's vote, no, it doesn't matter when it comes to that, but it certainly matters when it comes to how serious these outlets really feel about Trump being Hitler and Trump's chances of beating Kamala Harris, which seems to be very likely. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.